Hello, I'm Stephen Hawley Martin, author of the new book, Fast Track to Higher Consciousness. If you'd like to know who you really are, what you really are, how the universe came to be in your place in it, you clicked on the right video. I'm going to share with you some key points from my book that not only will result in you achieving a higher level of consciousness, it's information you can use to create the life you want. It's knowledge that less than a handful of people are aware of today. That's because most people either have a religious view of things, that an anthropomorphic God created everything, which isn't so, or they subscribe to the secular humanist view that nothing exists except matter and that humans can be compared to robot-like machines with computer-like brains. And when we die, that's it. But you're about to find out that's nothing but baloney. The true nature of reality has been known for almost 100 years. It was revealed succinctly by the founder of quantum theory, Max Planck, in an article that ran in 1931. He said, "I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. We cannot get behind consciousness. Everything that we talk about, everything that we regard as existing, postulates consciousness." Max Planck also said, "I can tell you, as a result of my research about the atoms, this much. There is no matter as such. All matter originates and exists only by virtue of a force that brings the particles of an atom to vibration and holds this most minute solar system of the atom together. We must assume behind this force is the existence of a conscious and intelligent mind. This mind is the matrix of all matter." Max Planck was not the only one, nor is he the only physicist to hold this view. I've interviewed a few, and it's clear to me they also believe that consciousness or mind creates reality, but they're reluctant to express this view because it seems to me, at least, to do so would be to risk ridicule from secular humanists. Not everyone, however, is so timid. One physicist I interviewed, Henry P. Stapp, has written a couple of books on the topic of consciousness, mind, and matter, and Dr. Stapp is not the only quantum physicist to go public. John Samuel Hegelin, a Harvard PhD in quantum physics, has postulated a theory that the universe emerged from the unified field, which Dr. Hegelin compared to the field of pure consciousness known as Veda, described by the ancient religious texts of India called the Vedas. Dr. Hegelin maintains that the unified field and Veda are the same thing. You see, the ancient rishis of India, sages who lived thousands of years ago, believed that Veda, which boiled down to everyday language as consciousness, is the ground of being of all that is. In other words, like quantum physicists Planck and Hegelin, the rishis believed that consciousness gives rise to the universe. Now, here is what may blow your mind. In humans, Veda, or consciousness, manifests as the self, the I am, the silent observer at the back of your mind and my mind. It's who you are at the core. The I am self is not your mind, but it is your consciousness. It's Veda, the ground of being, the decision maker in each of us that observes the thoughts that arise in our minds and decides which ones to act upon and which ones to dismiss. It's impossible to understate the magnitude of this realization, the implications of which are huge. For one thing, it belies the basic premise of secular humanism that all that exists is matter. As indicated already, what secular humanists think of as matter does not exist. Albert Einstein's famous equation, E equals mc squared, tells us that matter is energy and energy is matter. The truth is that what does exist is energy that's conscious, what I think of as life force, and what Max Planck and the others above think of as the intelligent mind that is the matrix of all matter. In my new book, Fast Track to Higher Consciousness, I cite concrete evidence from quantum physicists' experiments and other highly credible sources to back up this view of reality. Now, you may be saying to yourself, wait a minute, the brain creates consciousness. Not so. Although it hasn't been widely publicized, the conclusion drawn after 60 years of exhaustive research at the University of Virginia School of Medicine is that the brain does not create consciousness. The bottom line finding is that the brain is a receiver of consciousness, like a cell phone is a receiver of text and voice messages, a receiver that integrates consciousness with the body, which might be better called the mind-body complex because it is a vehicle or an apparatus that allows your consciousness and my consciousness to inhabit and operate in this physical dimension. If the brain does not create consciousness, where do you suppose it comes from? As Max Planck apparently believed, consciousness is the source, the Veda, the ground of being that generates and informs reality. The British quantum physicist Sir James Jeans hit the nail on the head when he said, the universe begins to look more like a giant thought than a great machine. He knew what other quantum physicists know, that there is no such thing as matter per se, no separate things made of truly solid stuff. All that exists are vibrations, energy, pure and simple. And since physical reality is vibrations, nothing is truly separate. Everything is connected. There can be no barrier or edge where one vibration stops and another one begins. As mystics have been saying since the dawn of time, all is one. Consider this. When you and I dream at night, our minds create our dreams, their imagery and all the trappings, and yet they seem real. If a car in your dream is about to run you over, for example, you're certain it's going to hurt, which is why you wake up. Yet not until your eyes pop open do you realize it was just a dream. Now think about this. There has to be a character in your dream from whose point of view what's happening is observed. There cannot be a dream without a source observing it. And in your dreams, that character is you. It follows that if the universe and this world is a dream in the mind of the Creator, there has to be a character in the dream for it to be observed. Who is that character? Well, you are that character, and I am that character. We humans, all living things, are characters in the Creator's dream that observe what's going on. And since all is one and connected, including the Creator and us, we serve as the Creator's eyes and ears. We are the vehicles by which the Source knows his, her, its creation. The reason this may be difficult to accept is that in our culture we are used to thinking of ourselves as totally separate entities. We think of the universe as out there. You think of the device you're watching this video on as a separate object. But, as noted above, quantum mechanics says that it's not the way things really are. We are all one, all part of the dream. You've been tricked into thinking that you are disconnected from the world around you, that you are set apart and from the rest of creation, a completely separate entity. You have been tricked into this because you have an ego that formed and was built up since birth. This was necessary because the ego creates and maintains our boundaries, our sense of where we end and others begin. But in order to grow and become all that you can be, it's important to realize that you are not your ego. Your ego is a construction that came about as a result of the environment into which you were born. Your ego is the way it is today because of what you were taught, what you experienced, and how you were raised. It's important to understand this because it is a construction, and therefore it can be changed, modified, or even ignored if you decide it's in your best interest to do so. Consider this. A moment exists between stimulus and response, between the instant something happens and you react to it. In that moment, you can decide not to react. That's right. Nothing says you actually have to react to the way your ego would have you react. The I am, that's the real you, can do what it wants. You can simply step away from the message and the emotion that your ego is sending you and take a moment to stop and think. Ask yourself, how did my ego become programmed to cause me to react this way? Was it something I was taught or experienced? Moreover, is it really in my best interest to feel and behave as my ego would have me feel and behave? Most people do not know this about their egos, and so they go through their lives almost completely unconscious of their true identity. The truth being that they are extensions of the one and only source. This reality is blocked from them because they react to and experience the world completely from their ego selves. They're so immersed in their egos that they actually assume they are their thoughts and emotions. As a result, they have very little control over themselves. And so they cannot help but become defensive, angry, mean, cynical, behaviors that lead many to self-destruction. Those enthralled to their egos feel that life happens to them. They do not understand that they alone create their lives and their personal realities, and that they do so with their thoughts and actions. As I'm sure you realize, I go into much more detail about all of this in my new book. Having watched to this point, you are already well on your way to higher consciousness. If you want to continue, if you want to find purpose and know what the end game of life on earth is, you'll want to read my new book, Fast Track to Higher Consciousness. You'll find a link to the page on Amazon in the write-up below. Thanks so much for spending time with me today.